If we're still talking, that means there's more World Series to play. Even though we're going to be talking and covering baseball beyond the World Series, we got more games. Thank God. I'm joined by Aram Layton. It is Tuesday, November 2nd, and Aram is in Houston, Texas for tonight's game. What's up, dude?
I'm in Houston, Texas, man. I mean, it was a bit of a trip. You don't realize, how far it is. It was like 4 hours and change from New York, but it's like hour to the airport, hour to where I am in Houston.
Layover.
But the whole time, all I was thinking about was just like, holy crap, I'm going to game 6.
Yeah.
Couldn't care less about the duration of the travel. I'm so excited, man. It's going to be so much fun. I haven't been to a World Series since 2008 when I went with my dad to raise Phillies. It was rain delayed until 10 p.m. and finished at 2 a.m. Obviously, that can't happen at Minute Maid. So I'm excited. I know I'm going to start on time. I know everything's going to be normal weather-wise. And we got a ball game to talk about here.
We got to talk about Game 5. We're going to recap the entire game for you, as well as preview Game 6. But before, let's talk a little bit of travel, because you have some pet peeves. I went to Syracuse University, grew up in Santa Barbara, California. I have made the trek from Santa Barbara to Syracuse to all over the country. I hate it. But you actually had an interesting pet peeve. It wasn't the people clapping, which I know everybody hates. It was a different one.
I hate the clapping, but I think that's just widely accepted at this point. But the one thing that just gets me, and I know, what do you want them to say? Like, well, I know people are going to say that, but when every single time the pilot's like, sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight. Don't enjoy the freaking flight, bro. Who the hell is sitting there just like, let's go, baby. It's a roller coaster. I'm going to take off. I'm going to enjoy the hell out of this thing. Like, I tolerate the flight. That's what I was saying to you. Like, I tolerate it. I know it doesn't sound right. Like, sit back, relax, and tolerate the flight. But when I go through the MRI machine, which sucks, by the way, they're not like, oh, enjoy the MRI. It's not enjoyable. It's a necessary means to find out what's wrong with my body, just like flying is a necessary means to get to where I need to go. But like, let's not pretend it's enjoyable. Every time they say that, I'm like, I'm miserable right now. And it just reminded me how miserable I am. But I
was just trying to rack my brain. I was like, yeah, we can talk negative about airlines all day. Can we think about anything positive? And while you were talking, I was like, well, I'm not going to just turn that question on him because I couldn't even answer it. I don't know anything positive. That's why I'm so excited for the Hyperloop when we can go from LA to San Francisco in an hour by this tube train. When is that? When do we get that?
Is that a thing?
That's a thing. My friend is working on it down in San Diego right now, the Hyperloop. He says he's estimating like 10 years we will have this train that's taking you from LA to San Francisco. And if you didn't know, LA to San Francisco is about, what is it? It's about 8-hour drive.
That's far.
Hyperloop gets you there in 45 minutes. So future.
That's like North Carolina to almost New York, I feel like, or something like that. I don't have the map in front of me, but that's pretty far. Like, that's multiple states in any other part of the country.
Yeah, that's the thing about California. It's like
Florida too.
I mean, it's the size of most of the East Coast.
I'm in for a Hyperloop. I don't mind trains as much. It's like the whole process of flying just sucks.
I know. I just want to hop on the train. I don't want to deal with any of that. But we gotta talk Game 5.
Yes.
So the Houston Astros, they've won a World Series 2017, 2019. The Braves haven't won one since 1995, and they were trying to close it out, but the Astros won 9-5, and they kind of broke it open. I felt like that 5th inning. I mean, we could start with in the 1st inning when Adam Duvall hit the grand slam, and I felt that the series was over. I mean, I had so much confidence in the Astros moving forward, but when they hit the home run, I said to myself, all right, series over. But the Astros just won't quit. The offense is too good, and they end up winning the game 9-5.
Well, it's funny. I had that moment where I was like, oh man, I looked at my roommate and I was like, this game might be over. But then I also was thinking about it. And as a few minutes passed, I'm like, that just happened in the 1st inning. Yeah. You basically just gave the Astros offense a target and said, you've got 27 outs to get there. Or I guess it would be 24 outs at that point to get there. That was, I think, what they needed. Their offense had really just stalled out. 0-0 game. Of course, you're always just trying to pile on runs. You're trying to win ball games. But At that point, you're down 4-zip. You're not wasting a single at bat, even in the second inning. You're like, we got to chip away, chip away, chip away. And I think they saw that 4 spot and they were like, we got to chip away at this. And that's exactly what they did. I mean, the at bats were great. They didn't take any time after that. They broke through with 2 in the second. They broke through with 2 more in the third, and that was it. So I felt like it just almost gave them some urgency because they realized, oh crap, we're down 4 and it's over if we don't score here. And instead, I feel like sometimes when it's 0-0, you go through the motions, you blink, and it's the 7th inning, and you're like, oh man. But they didn't have a chance to do that there. And I think it was honestly a good thing for them.
And speaking to that urgency, I felt like we saw that in the lineup construction, right? Carlos Correa moves down to the 3 hole. Alex Bregman moves down to the 7th. Going into the game, I think Alex Bregman was slugging 071, if I read that stat correctly. And they were Heidi Watney was talking with Alex Bregman after the game, and she asked him, what have you been doing to, get better? And he's like, I've just been hitting nonstop in the cages because my top hand is terrible. So it was good to see him in game 5 mash one to right center field for that double, hit the ball the other way, get that top hand on top. So, and then Carlos Correa, a guy who I had personally as my MVP of the series. I know you did too. He's been hitting 5, 6, 7, and then he finally got the jump to the 3 hole, and he goes 3 for 5 with a couple extra base hits, and really, commanded the game for the Astros. I was impressed with Dusty Baker, the head coach of the Astros, being okay with switching around the lineup when he knew he had to win. And also, Yordan Alvarez is 1 for 16 in this series. He's hit cleanup every single game. Will we see him hitting 4th in game 6?
Yeah, it's a good question because Alvarez is still one of your guys in this whole postseason. I mean, he's been hitting as well as anybody, but you're playing for your life now. You lose, it's over, and you've got to put your best chips forward. And in this instance, it was moving Bregman down, which I funny enough, had tweeted out earlier the day before. I think the Astros should look into moving Bregman down here. Like he needs to be moved down. And funny enough, they did it. And I was glad they did because Bregman's a vet. If it's Alvarez, it's a little different. You don't want to, stifle their confidence or get in their head a little bit. I think Alvarez can handle it. He knows what kind of hitter he is. But Bregman, Correa, those guys are vets. I don't think they care where they are in the lineup. So if it helps them at this point, then it helps them at this point. I think that was exactly what Bregman needed. You mentioned going the other way. You can't go the other way the way he did without that top hand being awake. And that swing may represent a little bit more for him, knowing that he could do that. If he yanks one down the line, that might not make him feel good because that's not what his issue was. If he yanked a curveball that was hung on the inner half or whatever it is, he took a pitch the other way, got on top of it, and drove it hard. And that might have been the little thing he needed to see to break through. So I'm interested to see how Bregman looks in the game tonight and see if he can build off of that. But I wonder what they're going to do with Yordan because it's left on left in this outing now. We're going to have Max Fried versus Yordan. I know Yordan has pretty consistent splits, but at the end of the day, almost every single player prefers a righty, unless you're Ichiro, prefers righty on lefty. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him move down. And you know what? Their lineup is so good. We always say, holy crap, Kyle Tucker's their 7-hitter. You could mix and match anybody. Maybe Kyle Tucker moves up into that cleanup spot if they want to offset the lefties the way that they normally do. Should be interesting to see how Dusty deploys that lineup. One other thing, too, I want to say about the game. When Martin Maldonado has 3 RBI, you're probably going to win the damn baseball game. Like that's the key for me. If Martin Maldonado drives in 3 runs, you're good. I'd be shocked if you lose. If you're the Astros offense with 3 RBI from Martin Maldonado.
See, I want to take you to a pivotal point in the 5th inning. So runners on 2nd and 3rd, Alex Bregman is up. The Braves manager Brian Snitker elects to intentional walk him to face Martin Maldonado.
Oh, yeah. I actually forgot about that. I'm so glad you brought that up. I literally disassociated.
I thought it was such a pivotal game. Martin Maldonado goes up 2-0 in the count. 2 balls, no strikes. Strike 1. Maldonado's got his bat on his shoulder. He's not swinging. AJ Minter, you've been one of the best relievers in the Braves bullpen. Arm barn. Armageddon, I like to call it. Armageddon's not catching on like arm barn, but I'm going to try and make it Armageddon. Martin Maldonado ends up walking. He even fake bunted. We knew he wasn't going to string. Can you imagine Braves front office people people in the dugout saying, AJ Minter, just throw it down the middle and we can get out of the inning. But then the Astros scored 3 in that inning. They took the lead 7-5 and then never looked back. I thought that was a very pivotal point in the game, and Braves couldn't get it done.
100% was a pivotal point. I legitimately removed it from my brain. And another one that I remember, I forgot what I said about that. I said that if you intentionally walk the bases loaded just to subsequently walk the next batter, it should be punishable by life in prison. That's what I tweeted, because to me, that's like the biggest baseball faux pas possible. Like, that's the worst thing you can do. I know that there's no way to know that your reliever is going to do that. But at the same time, let's not pretend that Minter's like Greg Maddux up there. He walked 20 batters in the regular season in 52 1/3 innings. So why put him in that situation? At least pitch Bregman super carefully. I don't love the intentional walk. Bregman's a guy that's been slumping. Just trust that you're not going to leave one over the middle. Go breaking ball, go away from him, make him expand the zone. And then if he doesn't, put him on. But they didn't even bother there. They didn't even bother. And I guess it's because there was a runner on third. They didn't want to risk a pass ball. I get that. But you got to trust Travis d'Arnaud. I think just putting him on and going straight to Maldonado, in theory, makes sense. But you got to be really confident that you're going to throw strikes here. And it's the World Series on the road with the bases loaded. It's a lot of pressure to put on a pitcher. I know Bregman crushes lefties. It's one of those spots where, it's tough, because if he pitches to Bregman and Bregman gets a hit, we would have said Maldonado's on deck, walk him. So I understand both sides of it. I'm just not a big fan of handing them the intentional walk. See if he'll give you a strike. See if he expands his zone. Maybe he'll expand the zone and roll over one. Just at least
my
throw
only
a couple
thing is,
pitches.
I think maybe they just want to limit those 4 pitches thrown. That could have been
true.
it. But I see what you're saying, though. But when I saw it happen, I said I thought that was a great move at the time. I mean, you got a hitter hitting.
I was cool with it.
Maybe 200. Can you get an out there with AJ Minter? But it's funny, in this series now, everyone's talking about AJ Minter with his 7.71 ERA in this series so far. Not saying he's a bad pitcher, has run into bad luck, but still has not been that same lockdown guy. A guy I also want to shout out, Phil Maytone on the Astros. That 5th inning that I was talking about, he shoved. Shoved. This Houston bullpen, dude. This Houston goddamn bullpen. 2.85 ERA during the playoffs. That's better than the Braves. It's better than everybody, except the Giants, Dodgers, but they're out of it, so it doesn't even matter. This Houston bullpen is legit. Another guy. I don't know whether we'll see him in Game 6 or Game 7, but Jose Urquidy was effective again in his 14 pitches in his 1 inning. He is going to continue to be a factor. Jake Odorizzi, another guy, continue to be a factor. Ryan Presley should be saved. Kendall Graveman, maybe not, through 37 pitches. Drew Smyly will probably be the only Braves pitcher not available in Game 6 after throwing 49 pitches.
That was the good part for the Braves, was that Smyly was able to kind of just clean it up and finish it out and preserve the bullpen. They needed somebody that could go in there and just get the outs at that point. It was still a close game up until he gave up 2 more runs, but it just didn't feel like they were going to climb back into it. And you look at the Astros side, Graveman threw 37 pitches, but he gets a day off. You have to wonder how the game flow is. I'm assuming, the Astros are in the driver's seat. They're going to say, okay, don't touch Graveman. But if it's a 1-run game and you really got to force a Game 7, I would say they might go to Graveman for 1. But you have Presley. So I think it's going to have to be one of those situations where you end up, behind where you wanted to be in terms of what pitcher you're going to. If you go to Presley earlier than you were hoping, then you might have to go to Graveman. I'm assuming he's going to be available here after at least a day off. It would have to be just 1 inning. But I'm interested to see how they manage it. I would say that it really lies on the shoulders of Luis Garcia. If Luis Garcia gives you 4, high chance that we might see Graveman in the 9th. But if Luis Garcia gives you 5 or 6, then the Astros are in a very good spot there. And I don't think it's crazy to say that Luis Garcia could give them 5 or 6 the way he's looked lately.
I agree. And Presley is another guy that they haven't used that much. Ryan Presley. He's disgusting. I mean, we saw his curveball. We talked about it in Game 4 with the 3,387 RPM curveball that basically defies physics. Also, another guy we got to shout out. Was Carlos Correa probably the MVP of this game? Yes. But who stood out the most? oh, I don't know, plus 18,000 to win World Series MVP, Zach Greinke. Not only did he pinch hit for the first time in the World Series, first time a pitcher has made a pinch hit appearance since 1923, but in that appearance, he had the hardest hit ball that the Houston Astros had in the entire game, 105.3 miles an hour. He's currently hitting 667 with a 0.00 ERA. Aram, is Zach Greinke your runaway World Series MVP right now? Come on.
Oh, if he goes one more outing, we get like a classic in game 7.
He's Ohtani.
And he goes 5 shutout to the 14th inning. Like, yeah.
If he steals a base, he is the MVP.
If he just,
you can get him a stolen base at 6.700 ERA. Come on.
He might steal. Okay, one thing about him, he is such a damn gamer. He is such a gamer.
He's so weird, bro.
I was thinking about it, bro. When they pinch hit Marwin Gonzalez for him, I was like, are we sure
the same thing?
Are we sure Marwin Gonzalez is better at this point? And Marwin had a great career, and I'm not, not to slight Marwin,
and
but
he did the job.
He's seeing the ball well. Like Greinke's, even his out was a hard hit ground ball up the middle.
It was.
He's hit the ball hard every single time. I swear, I would have rather Greinke swing it and then have him go another inning because he was spectacular in that outing. I mean, he looked so good. And that was just really awesome to see Greinke rise to the occasion there and get outs. And if the Astros somehow win this, probably not the MVP, but you know what? He played a big part in it. And I don't think anybody, including the Vegas odds clearly, were not factoring in Zach Greinke to do much at all to help the Astros in this series. And it turns out he's played a big part.
Absolutely played a big part. Let's talk about the rest of the series. We're starting with game 6. Just letting you guys all know, if game 7 were to happen and the Astros do win tonight, we'll see you the next day. We're going to preview game 7. So stay tuned. But the Houston Astros are currently favorites. They jumped up to minus 120 on the money line versus the Atlanta Braves, who are plus 110, kicking off at 8:09 p.m. Eastern. For the Braves, we have Max Fried. Their best pitcher, maybe besides Charlie Morton, hasn't been that great in the playoffs, but he had an amazing second half. Facing off, again, like you said, Luis Garcia, 3.30 ERA during the regular season, 24-year-old rookie. And I'd like to just go over some pretty important stats. But before we break into the stats, your gut, how you feeling?
It's funny because my gut was that the Braves would just get there and close it out. But then my baseball mind, I guess, as I start to think about the pitching matchup, I'm seeing Max Fried, who got shelled in his last outing. And I see Luis Garcia, who looks like he figured something out on the mound in his last 2 starts. We talked about what he did in the last series to really help take it across the finish line against the Red Sox and how he looked like a different pitcher. And then he looked like that guy again in Atlanta, in a tough environment, even when his command waned at times, still looked like that guy. The stuff played the same, and he was able to get out of some really tough jams and really tough spots that you don't imagine a rookie being able to get out of on that stage. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, just speaking about that rookie who touched 97.8 miles an hour. During the regular season, he was 93.3. And another very interesting stat to note, the Braves ranked 21st against fastballs and 27th against cutters on a per-pitch basis since the trade deadline. Those are both 2 of Luis Garcia's most used pitches. And you talked about the whiff rates on the cutter. And if the fastball is nearing 98 miles an hour, and let's also note that Luis Garcia at home this season had a 2.39 ERA versus on the road, he had a 4.24 ERA. The rookie is obviously more comfortable at home in front of his home crowd, but the Braves are no slouches. So when you hear that, what comes out?
I think Luis Garcia is going to rise to the occasion. I think Garcia is going to have a great outing. It's going to be what happens afterwards.
Yeah.
I don't love, and we'll get to Fried in a moment because I want to wrap up on Garcia too. Is you talk about the velo bump. His fastball during the regular season was his Achilles heel.
Yeah.
Point blank was his Achilles heel. I mean, that thing got teed off on because it didn't have a good movement profile.
Kind of straight.
It was in the 93 range, like you mentioned. Opponents at 301 against it, expected slugging of 499. But what he did now is he make those adjustments to those mechanics. You see the momentum that he's trying to create with the rocking the baby, all of the crazy movement that he does. He's 240 pounds. Yeah. So he's generating all of this momentum and he's getting his body behind it. And he's found a way, to really be able to tap into this extra velocity. And it's making that fastball not a terrible pitch, really. Like, it's just that simple because his other pitches are great. He had to be so perfect with it before, and he was so heavy on the secondary stuff. Now he's just going to the cutter, but he knows that the fastball works too.
He does know that the fastball works. I know that he was also dealing with a knee thing, and it was funny that he was dealing with a knee injury and then came out and was throwing even harder. So I think to myself, was that just an excuse they threw out too early? I was just curious how we can have knee problems extending off that leg, throwing harder.
I wonder if it just got him into like really focusing on the mechanics even more and just making sure he's using every ounce of his body as much as he can to take the pressure off that knee. Maybe the mechanics were part of the reason his knee was like not getting better and kind of bothering him. It's really interesting. And that's something I can't wait to hear him talk about after the World Series. But the reality is too now is that he's able to use his secondaries that are spectacular, and he's able to set a baseline with the fastball now. Whereas before, I felt like the secondaries were masking the fastball. It was like, let me hide this fastball that I have to throw still because everybody has to throw a fastball, but I want to avoid it as much as possible because the secondaries are my bread and butter. Now the fastball works for him, and you got to worry about a cutter that opponents at 175 against this year. And we've seen it. I mean, he's racked up like a 70% whiff rate over the last 2 games with that cutter. The slider is spectacular. The changeup has been pretty good. He even mixes in a curveball to lefties, and he can give you 2 different looks, which the lefties get the curveball and changeup. The righties get the cutter and slider. It's a miserable at bat right now against a Luis Garcia who can give you a bunch of different perspectives. And I think he's going to give this Braves team some issues, but how deep does he go? And can the Braves get to the bullpen? You mentioned some of the guys stepping up. They only got to get to one of those guys if Max Fried pitches well. But how confident are we that Max Fried pitches well?
Exactly. And we got to talk about Max Fried, but just a little tidbit before we move on against Luis Garcia. I like Freddie Freeman and Austin Riley both to have big days, but those are the 2 best hitters in the Braves lineup against fastballs and against cutters. One more Braves guy to note, though, a guy who I'm not very confident in is Ozzie Albies. We've talked about him. The thing with Ozzie Albies is he's significantly better hitting from the right side. He had a 146 WRC plus from the right side in 2021, a 94 WRC plus left-handed. So he was 6% below league average as hitting left-handed, but he was 46% above league average when he hits right-handed, and he's going to hit left-handed today against Luis Garcia. I'm interested to see how Ozzie Albies does.
Not only that, I think I'm going to start like remember when Facebook fan pages were a thing? Any issue that was important to you, like stop clapping on airplanes. You can make a group and a bunch of people who hate it.
No, you're not even stop clapping. You're just stop telling me to enjoy it.
Yeah, and don't tell me to enjoy it. Like, I would love to start a movement of just like Ozzie Albies, please stop switch hitting. Just hit righty. Because he is so much better from the right side. His exit velos are almost 3 miles per hour harder from the right side. The bat speed, eye test wise, is not even close. The bat is so much quicker from the right side. And what worries me, to piggyback off of what you're saying, is cutters in on the hand of a left-handed hitter who tends to drag the barrel sometimes compared to his right side. I think he's going to get jammed. I don't think he's going to be able to get that barrel out there. I think that Garcia is going to go right in on his hands. It's going to be a tough one for Albies, and this is probably his kryptonite type of matchup. I think you're right on with that.
So speaking about Max Fried, he's thrown 21.2 innings in the playoffs so far. He's allowed 26 hits and 13 earned runs to give him a 5.40 ERA. His last start, he threw 5 innings against the Astros in Game 2, allowed 7 hits and 6 earned while striking out 6. It is important to note Max Fried will be pitching on regular days rest. Last time he pitched was October 27th. Luis Garcia, last time he pitched October 29th. It will not be regular rest for Luis. It will be regular rest for Max Fried. But the Astros are the best team in baseball against left-handed pitching during the regular season. They have ranked number 1 in 4 of the last 5 seasons in terms of WRC plus against lefties during the regular season. They've already beat up on Max Fried. So you know where I'm going with this, Aram. I'm feeling the over. It's at 8.5. It's probably going to go over. But just before you touch on Max Fried a little bit, the under is 3-2 in the series with an average of 7.6 runs scored per game.
The thing that scares me about the over is that I could see Luis Garcia shove it. I could see the Braves getting in trouble. I really think that the only way the Braves win this game is if Max Fried has one of those Max Fried outings that we saw early in the postseason and towards the end of the regular season. And I don't know if that happens. So it's going to be one of those where I might just go team total Astros, which is a little bit specific. And I know we like to go general over-unders. But with Fried, I just always feel like there's no in between with him, especially now where you either get a dazzling start or he gets shelled. There's no 6 innings, 3 runs, or 6 innings.
Seem like it, at least not recently. Maybe in the second half of the regular season, but we just haven't seen that in the playoffs.
No, there's been no in between. And with him, his margin for error can get kind of thin because his fastball is pretty hittable as well. He's got a great curveball and a great slider, but when he's not locating both of those pitches, he gets into trouble. And that's exactly what happened last outing. I mean, he was able to get 13 whiffs on the curveball and the slider, and he threw those 2 pitches, each of them, more. He threw the slider 26 times, curveball 26 times, and the fastball 21 times. So he's going to each of his breaking balls more than his fastball. That to me is like, okay, you're going to have a small margin for error there, because if you're not locating one of those breaking balls, I'm kind of tunneled in on one speed there as a hitter because the fastball and the slider's a hard pitch. I'm not too worried about it. I just really think that this could be a tough one for Fried. He's really going to have to be able to locate his off speed, and I don't expect him to go deep into the game. I think third time around the lineup, even if he's doing well, they're going to pull him, especially with the way he goes with his secondaries. It's going to be on the Braves bullpen to try to piece this one together, and that's why I think the Drew Smiley 3 innings, or was it 3 or 4 innings that he picked up was really big for them, because Luke Jackson and co are going to have to come up pretty big in this one, and whoever else is available. I just don't see Fried going deep, even if he does pitch well.
You know who I'd be afraid of the Astros?
Who?
Jesse Chavez. Jesse Chavez is shoving right now. He hasn't allowed a run in this series. He just comes in with his sunglasses, throwing, or goggles, whatever he's wearing, throwing 89 to 91. Every other pitcher in this series is trying to blow up by guys. Luis Garcia is touching new heights with his fastball. Jesse Chavez is like, nah, I'll just chill. See if you can hit it.
Yeah.
Similar to Jose Urquidy. These are the guys who are working in these playoffs.
Urquidy, man. I mean, God, yeah. He's really just shoved it up my you-know-what. I mean, it's great to see. I mean, see in relief, too. He goes 1 inning in relief, and I'm like, oh, my God, they're using Urquidy in relief? He was great. But, I mean, yeah, you talk about it. They've just had so many guys step up, and that's been really cool to see. And Maton especially. Stanek has been really good. It's been a really, really amazing performance. And they're kind of taking a page out of the Braves book. Underachieving bullpen for a lot of the season. Obviously, the Braves bullpen was much better in the second half, but then just kicks it in gear down the stretch here. And they've got a little bit of momentum. I know they're down, but they've got a little bit of momentum. They're back home, and I don't care who you ask. I think this starting pitcher matchup, even though Fried's on full rest, the way Garcia's looked, the way Fried looked last outing, it's got to be advantage Astros, even on a day shorter rest for Luis Garcia.
And it's funny, the home field advantage. The Braves just lost their first game at home these playoffs. A team has never gone 8-0 in the playoffs at home. Never. And now we still have nobody going 8-0. But when I'm talking about home field advantage, the Astros when they don't get a DH, they don't get to put Jordan in DH and put Chas McCormick out in center field and make their entire outfield unit better defensively. They can't do that. The Braves have a great understanding of how to plug and play with the pitcher hitting ninth. But now you move to Houston. And I know the Braves get to put in another outfielder, but that's where the Astros are at their best in Minute Maid when they're able to use the DH, put Chas McCormick out in center, hit Maldonado ninth. That's all. And another reason why I really like the over. The Braves, I mean, in Game 5, talk about Freddie Freeman for a second, hitting the farthest home run in the playoffs this year. But they also were top. Let me see this. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They hit 8 of the 10 hardest hit balls in Game 5. The Braves bats are still going to be here to stay. I think Luis Garcia could turn in a decent outing. I really don't think he's going to shove, though, considering he's never shoved. Even the last time we faced the Braves on full rest, he didn't shove. Same matchup there. I think the Braves in the second time around can get to him again, but I also think that the Astros are going to score. I'm leaning over 8.5, and I'm also leaning Astros.
Well, you bring up a good point with the DH because the way that the unders have hit the last couple of games with no DH, it makes a big difference. I've talked to big league pitchers about this, and they say just knowing you have that break at the 9 spot, because not only do you have the break at the 9 spot, you can pitch around the 8 spot.
And Maldonado's supposed to be another break.
Exactly. I mean, they hit him 8th. Yeah. Greinke, or they hit him 9th. I mean, Greinke hit 8th.
Because Greinke's not break.
Says everything you need to know. That to me definitely makes a difference, and I think any pitcher will tell you that. So it should be interesting to see how that plays. Also, getting Alvarez out of the outfield is definitely going to help this Astros team. I mean, we talked about it before the series. I thought he was going to make potentially a pivotal mistake. He hasn't been put in that position yet, but he did make a bad mistake in the last game.
Missed a couple cutoffs.
Yeah, he made that throw over to third, allowed the runner to advance. I mean, you can't blame him. He's never been out there. He only played 300 innings in the field during the regular season. So you look at what he did. I mean, he made a couple bad mistakes. Those could have been game-altering faux pas at the end of the ball game there. So they get to get him out of the field. That's a huge bonus. You talk about the offensive boost. You talk about McCormick. I think that a lot of the things are trending towards the Astros, but the Braves only have to win one of two. And ultimately, that is the ultimate advantage. But that's not something that the Astros aren't able to overcome clearly. And let's be real, like Correa said, teams don't come back from 3-1 often, but if there's a team that can come back from 3-1, it's a team full of guys that have been here before, that have already won the World Series, and that are already among some of the leaders all time in cumulative postseason stats. These guys aren't blinking. They're not worried, and now they're back home and they're comfortable.
I mean, speaking exactly to that point, Aram, imagine you're a team, you go down 4-0 in Game 5 after losing 2 games on the road. Did the Astros panic? Not even a little bit. They've been there before. If they're down, don't count them out. If they're ahead, don't think that they're a team that can blow it. The Braves, I can't call them that. They just haven't had the experience. Not their fault. They're a team of destiny. But yeah, exactly. Like, we know what happened to Atlanta sports teams. Is that fair to just put on the Braves? No, not at all. The Braves can easily win this series. They have the starting pitching advantage, and that's the biggest advantage in baseball. You have Max Fried, who is an ace in this league. Then you have this, I mean, one of the best postseason pitchers we're starting to see, really, in Ian Anderson going Game 7. I feel more comfortable up 3-2 with my 2 best starters going Game 6 and Game 7, even though I'm on the road, rather than the Astros down 3-2 with the likes of Luis Garcia, maybe a Zach Greinke, Jose Urquidy. You can't pitch Framber anymore unless they, for some reason, throw him in a Game 7. I don't know why they would. They have plenty of bullpen, but I don't think we'll see any more Framber. I feel more comfortable if I'm the Braves, but I have a feeling the Astros are going to win the World Series.
Wow. I feel like we just did a full lap around every possible scenario. I feel very similar with a lot of those notions. I think the thing is you have a Braves team that at the end of the day, they have the advantage. Like you said, you got Fried, who I still think the pitching matchup is advantage Garcia if he's able to rise to the occasion on, short rest. But then you have Ian Anderson going game 7, who's been just nothing shy of spectacular. And the Astros, who would have been all hands on deck, presumably, unless they blow out the Braves in game 6, will be pretty taxed bullpen wise because you're just trying to get to the next day. They're going to have to try to piece it together in game 7 while the Braves have their guy going in game 7. At this point, no Morton. Ian Anderson's your game 7 guy, no doubt about it. You don't even have to think. So with what he's been able to do, I think that the Astros have a lot of life. They're not your typical team down 3-2. They scare me more than almost any other team down 3-2, but they're still down 3-2.
They're still down 3-2.
I feel like it's Braves in 7. I really do. And I think that the Astros are going to be able to squeeze one out. And I think if it goes to game 7, anything can happen, but I would really think it's advantage Braves at that point, especially with Anderson on the bump. So the Braves have 2 shots. You don't want it to go to game 7 because anything can happen. We talk about 1-game playoffs, but I think that the Astros have enough going for them to steal one. And then Braves take care of business in game 7, which would be an ideal scenario. That'd be so much fun.
I really hope it does go to 7. So then we'll see it tomorrow, but we'll probably see it tomorrow regardless. But I hope we can talk about the World Series on tomorrow's podcast. Yeah,
I'm not ready for off-season mode. I'm not ready for you to tell me all the guys that need to go to the Yankees. I'm not ready.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't need to tell you that the Yankees just signed Carlos Correa, Corey Seager, and Trevor Story, and that's their new infield next year. But I just wrote my betting preview on justbaseball.com. Go check it out. My final pick. Right now, we're recording it Monday. Still, I'm leaning Astros in the over, but you'll see if you look at the article. Keep us updated. Keep yourself updated on TikTok and Instagram at Just Baseball Fans.
Yeah, I would say you have one more sleep to have the voices come to you and the visions come to you before you make your final choice. But also, I just put out the Detroit Tigers top 10 prospects. So for my prospect people out there, spend some time on those write-ups. Really good system.
Royals too. You've done a ton.
Yeah, we're cruising through. Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, Dylan Dingler, but there's a lot more talent beyond that. So if you like the prospect stuff, keep an eye out. I'm putting out at least one top 10 list every week, trying to get towards 2 every week for all 30 teams. And we've already churned along. We're about 6 deep. So it's been a lot of fun, but I'll let you get back to the outro. I had to just tease that one thing.
No, you got to tease that. And you also got to tease. You're coming out with some free agent predictions as well. Maybe Nick Castellanos. I already saw a Starling Marte article written by Ryan Finkelstein, our boy. We're cooking.
It's going to be this is a good free agent class. This is one of the best shortstop free agent classes we've ever seen.
Starting pitching.
There's pitching. There's young players that, are still in their prime. It's going to be really fun predicting where these guys are going to go. And we'll have you every step of the way at justbaseball.com.
Go not only justbaseball.com. We are also streaming on Twitch Wednesday and Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Go check out our Discord. We also started Just Gridiron Fans. Just Baseball boys have dipped their toes into football. Go check it out. Just Gridiron Fans on TikTok.
You dipped your whole leg in, bro. You dipped your whole leg in. There's like 30,000 followers on there now.
We did grow 25,000 in a day, which was pretty nuts. I was on an absolute heater.
Yeah, you're on a heater.
Jets plus 11. I'm 12-2 in my last, but we got Chiefs tonight, so we'll see.
Oh yeah,
we'll see.
It'll be fun.
Patrick Mahomes, you better show up. But we got game 6 tonight, game 7 if necessary. That's Aram. I'm Peter. Thank you, everybody.